to documentation. So what I do presently at RSK Smart, I handle the dev portal, developers portal, where developers go to check our APIs and use our tools to build their product. So we use Jekyll at RSK, and that's why I thought to share how to get started with Jekyll in this meetup. Thank you, Write the Docs Nigeria, for the opportunity to speak on building a doc site with Markdown and Jekyll. And also, I'm the founder of Tecrity, which is Tecrity is a non-profit which is aimed at kickstarting people into tech careers by providing the vital resources they need, such as laptop, data, and mentorship. So the whole essence of this topic is to let technical writers know that it's not all about writing articles and publishing on Medium, Dev.io, Hashnode, Hackanon. But in case you are told to take a much higher position, like what I do, technical content developer, in case you are also told to, in case you want to move into other fields in technical writing, like API documentation, you will need to know how to use these tools, doc tools, to start an API, to start a documentation site. So those are other things in the field, in the career, that most people don't know about, and they might think it's all about writing technical articles. Technical articles is part of it, but there are other stuff like editing, like API writing, and so on. Using tools, there is Read the Docs tools, there is Jekyll, static site builder, there is MKDoc. So there are so many of those things, and it's necessary for you as a technical writer to also have an idea of all what they do, how to generate the site. So in case you are told to handle a documentation portal for developers, you will know how to maneuver your way in it. So yeah, next slide, please. So that's it for my background, and I'll be talking on what is Markdown today and what is Jekyll. Markdown is a markup language, just like HTML, and it's used to format elements to plain text documents, just as we know that HTML do. The difference between Markdown is that with Markdown, you don't need, you can easily use your Notes app. You can use any app, any application, any editing application to open Markdown, which is not like the HTML and other markup languages. But with Markdown, it's easily passable across all applications. Markdown has a specific way of formatting text. So it's a text. You format text in Markdown differently. The way you format a link in HTML is different from the way you format a link in Markdown. So that's what we'll be looking at. And the file format for a Markdown is .md or .markdown, as we will see when we get to the Jekyll part. Yeah, so the overall design goal for Markdown's formatting syntax is to make reading as much as possible, is to make text as readable as possible. Sorry. The idea is that a Markdown formatted document should be polishable as plain text without looking like it's been marked up with tags or formatting instruction. So it's very simple. Markdown is very simple, and most of us might have come across it, especially when we deal with GitHub and our README. So it's a very important tool to have under our belt, because it's used by Medium. It's used in all sites where we publish our articles as technical writers. So Markdown is just a simple text, a text markup language that enables us to easily write text documents, pass our documents. You don't need to worry about the application you're using to open the document. Like, for example, HTML, you have to open the HTML in a VS Code or in a text editor. But with MD, with .md Markdown, you can open it on any application. You can open .md on your editor, your text editor. You can open it on your Notes app. So that's the whole difference between the MD formatting markup language and all other markup languages there are. So why do you need to use Markdown? It's can be used for everything. Like I said, you can use Markdown in your Notes app. You can use Markdown in your text editor. You can use Markdown in your sites, to build your sites. You can use Markdown in your Medium application, in your Medium web as a tool on Medium. You can use it as a tool on dev.to. Markdown is portable, meaning that it's very lightweight, and it can be used to create websites. It can be used to create documents, notes, books, presentation, and what name you. So it can be open on any application, like I said. And if you decide you don't like the Markdown application you're currently using, you can import your Markdown files into another Markdown application. Yeah, that's how simple it is. Some if we remember there was a time with Microsoft Word, I think Microsoft PowerPoint or thereabouts. If you don't open that particular document with the same version, you notice that you can't open it elsewhere on a higher version. So, but with the Markdown application, you can take your .md file and move it to any application. It doesn't worry about versioning. You don't need to worry about your text application getting mixed up or thereabouts. So that's the whole difference between the Markdown, why we need to know Markdown, and why it's used as a tool for technical writers. So the best way to get started with Markdown is to use it. And how do you use it? You can use your text editor, your VS Code. You can use any text editor. You can use the online tools for Markdown formatting. The one I use is hackmd.io, hackmd.io. You can use the linker. So we're going to practice with hackmd.io. We're going to practice the Markdown syntax with hackmd.io. So let me share my screen. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to hackmd.io, and we're going to just do at least a 2 minutes this preparatory or a practice session with Markdown on hackmd. So this is the hackmd hackmd tool that enables us to write Markdown and see what we are writing. So it's very good. I'll suggest you guys use it, especially if you are writing your documentation, or you want to see how your application will look apart from writing it in VS Code. So for Markdown, to do an H1 text, to do a title text, you do H1. It's H1. Remember, H1 is H1 in HTML. But with Markdown, you use an hash and you do building a doc site with HTML. So this is the Markdown H1 tag, which is the hash. Then for H2, you do a second hash, which is 2 hashes, and you get the H2 tag. So for the H3, you do 3 hashes and 4 hashes and stuff. So let's go to the next doing a title. So for a link, for doing a link example, the HTML, for HTML you use A for linking nodes or linking files. But with hackmd, you can use this one, exclamation, you open your brackets, and you do you open your parentheses, and you put your bracket after it, and you put your file path. So
you got a big pussy, bitch.
In the brackets, you use let me just put the title of the image, maybe my profile picture.
Shut up. Please give me
my profile picture. And once you do that, we put the link to the profile picture. So with Markdown, it's easier because you can just go to those icon where you do insert image, and let me just insert any image from my downloads folder, and you can see the image. So let me just name this hot. But that's so for the hot, that's the text, that's the title of your image. That's your title of your image. With the HTML one, we have we have to put in the title and stuff. So that's the hot part. Then that's for links. So link, what's the next one? This, okay. Sorry, that's for images. For links, we use the parentheses, and we can put a link to any article. Like, let me look for a link to this one. I think I got your puppy in my blood. Let me look the links to that one. Okay.
Shut up.
Oh, yes, so this is me attaching a link to the my company's developer portal. So if you look at it, it's already formatted for me and shows me. So if I click on this one, I can go to the next one. So I can go to the website. So that's what Markdown does for you. It helps to format. It has a different way of formatting text, and it's very easy. And once you know the basic H1, H2, using hashes for your titles, using links, using images, doing tables, it's Markdown. You are set to go. So that's it for the preparatory on Markdown. So let's move over to Jekyll. Jekyll is a static site builder, and so how many of us have the link to the repo? I think Rufai will post the link to the repo. So I've already created a repo for us to work with, a Jekyll repo. So please go look on the chat. I think the link is on the chat. Go to that repo and clone the repo. Let me just do that. So let me do that in this session now. Let me do the practice. So this is me going to the repo that I created for the Jekyll. So what does Jekyll do? Jekyll uses Markdown to render blog posts or documentation sites. So what Jekyll does is Jekyll renders your Markdown into HTML. So you don't need to bother about HTML, writing your documentation with HTML. You can write Jekyll. What Jekyll does for you is to write you can write your documentation in Markdown, and it automatically gets formatted into HTML. So it converts your text files into HTML, which is called text transformation. So Jekyll actually does more like magic, like templating, pagination, syntax highlighting. So what syntax highlighting means is when you put your code, when you put the 3 backticks and you want to enter your code, you can easily attach a title to that 3 backticks, and Jekyll automatically formats it for you. So let's go over to the practice session. Right now. So please let's clone the repo, and I'll go over the practice now. So okay, so this is the repository. I'm copying the repository now, and I'm opening my terminal. So git clone. This is git clone the terminal.
Post on the thing. No. What? It's the one that remained beautiful. No, it's not.
Hello?
Yes, it is. And I can't post it because he's the one that found it.
They're gonna kick me.
Sorry, I'm okay. Sorry for the disturbance.
Okay.
I think.
So this is
Try it one more
I'm
time.
cloning my repository
Maybe
now.
that was wrong.
This is a good song.
Is there a way we can kick them out of the meeting, please? Please look for a way to kick them out of the meeting. It's spamming the whole.
Well, they're like, I don't see any music.
I don't know why the admin is finding it so hard to kick them out. I was the one that kicked out the first guy. Please, if you're finding it hard, just
Shut up.
make
No, unmute me.
Let me find it, please.
Dumb person.
Hey,
Hey, I like the song. Don't pause it.
Please let's hold on while they sort it out. It's only Hello, are we ready now?
Yes, please continue. Thanks.
Okay, so my battery will soon go off, so let me just do the so this is Git cloning the repo I created, like it will be shown in the chat. Please, Rofai, drop the link in the chat. So I'm cloning it now, as you can see on my screen. So it's been cloned, so I'll cd into write the docs Nigeria. So let me open this this repo in my VS Code. So what I did was I went to the documentation for Jekyll. I followed the documentation. If you go to Jekyll documentation site, which is here, you have quick start, the step-by-step tutorial. So what they have, what the quick start step-by-step tutorial is a blog site. So you will be the one to organize it and put your headers, you put your left navigation for proper content to easily format your content. You have your header. So if you follow step tutorial on Jekyll, it's there. You have to prepare your environment, like in the documentation, set up your environment. So there are basic things you have to set up in your environment, which is Ruby, and you see that in the README on the repo. So let me just go ahead and do the preparatory, then we can go over to the repo and look at what we want to do, look at all the setup that needs to be done. So this is the file. This is the repo. Sorry, I've opened it on my VS Code. And this is the structure for the Jekyll docs. So if I open this, let me run this file. Let me run this repo. So with Jekyll, you can run the repo by using Jekyll serve as shown on the README. So I've already done the README, setting up your environment instruction in the README, so you can clone it and see everything that needs to be done. So what we have to do now is to start this repo. Sudo gem install bundler. So go to sudo gem install bundler, install the bundler. As you can see, it's successfully installed. I'm going to the next instruction, which is bundle update. Bundle updates. So I'm installing the bundle. So just go over this when you clone the repo. Then now I can do the final one, which is bundle install. So I've installed everything that needs to be installed. Then now I can now go to and start the repository, the local documentation on my local host, the documentation on my local host. So with Jekyll, you use bundle exec Jekyll serve to start the site on localhost. So my site is running now, And if I go to localhost 4000, as you can see on the screen, I will see the site running. So this site has already been hosted on Netlify. So the link to the site will be on the chat. So what you can see now is the basic site I did for the docs. So with documentation, we have the left navigation, we have a header, we have the left navigation, we have our content on the right side, and we have our footer. So I was not able to get that done because of time. But if you face any challenge, you can go over the documentation on Jekyll, and if you face any challenge, you can reach out to me. So with Jekyll, there are basic structures that you need to understand, which is the includes, the layouts, a permalink. So please go over the directory structure to better understand Jekyll. You need the documentation so that you don't waste time on a particular problem. So please, whenever dealing with Jekyll, please endeavor to go over the directory structure, go over the terms include. So with includes, what includes does for you is, it includes everything that's your header, your footer has to be in the include file, and you will see how to insert your includes in your .html file. So those are the basic. This is the structure of of the repo I did. We have the default .html where you have your basic HTML site. So this is what we are seeing here. So this is what we are seeing here on this part, on build a documentation site with Markdown and Jekyll about the author. And with Jekyll, we have layouts. So your layout is what determines where your page should go to. So in your index.markdown, we have the layout home. This is already done by Jekyll, layout home. And if I happen to remove this home and set another layout, my site will change. So these are what you have to go through and check in the documentation so that you don't face any. So if you look at my screen, because I removed the layout from home, which is the pre-built site for Jekyll, my content is no longer there. So if you go to the documentation, Jekyll asks you to create another home file. My battery is going down, sorry. Jekyll asks you to create another home file in your root folder, and you will be able to redo your whole site. So now this is just a basic documentation, just like similar to a blog site, sorry. But when you are able to go over the docs, you can easily align your content. You can have your left navigation, you can have your right navigation, and you can do a header. So let me give you an example of a site. My company site was built with Jekyll, like I said. So if I go to my company's website, you are going to see the structure. So this underneath, this was built with Jekyll, and you have seen that everything has been arranged: the header, the footer, and every other thing. So this is not the only stuff you can do with Jekyll. Like I said, you can now format your content and make it look as you want to do. But as we all know, it's a static site, so you cannot have any interactions with it, except you want to. There are some basic plugins that can be inserted in Jekyll for you to make it more interactive. But basically, on the background, it's a static documentation site. So this site, developers.rsk.co, was built with Jekyll and Markdown. You can see the left navigation similar to your documentation, how you see it in other documentation portals. So this is the home and every other thing. So please, if you face any challenge while starting your project, please reach out to me. I think I'm going to stop here and switch over my system because my battery is low. So please, that's what Jekyll does for you. So please, if anyone cloning the system and you are facing any challenge with setting up your environment with Ruby, have created a Medium post. There's a Medium post I created that will help you to can help you to install Ruby and Ruby version manager. So with Jekyll, you need a particular version of Ruby. You need a particular version of Ruby to kickstart it. So let me just share this. I can share this file with you. this link. Okay, so how to install Ruby? So if you're having problems setting up your environment, you can use this link. You can use this link to see how you can easily set up your environment for Ruby, and you can get the Jekyll documentation static site builder up and running. So please, if you have questions, please let's ask.
Thank you, Amakre, for the session and for the demo. You can switch your system now while I hold down the session for you, or you can just continue. So
thank you. Let me switch now.
Okay. So I will just summarize what the conversation and the delivery of today's topic has been. So today's topic, she started with talking about markdowns. And she said Markdown is a markup language, just like we have HTML and similar tools. So the difference is in HTML, you use it to build straight websites, but markdowns are flexible, they are portable in that they can allow you to do simple documentations. Just if you want to keep a note, you can use Markdown. If you want to build a website, you can use Markdown. If you want to create a website, you can use Markdown. One funny thing is if you have used GitHub, or if you use GitHub a lot, you will realize that GitHub uses Markdown in all their readmes to allow people to be able to share information about that project. So that is one way where we use Markdown. In today's session, we now delved into Jekyll. And what is Jekyll? Jekyll is a site generation tool. You use it to generate the verse. Okay, you're welcome.
I am here now. Yeah. So please, if you have questions.
I'm just summarizing your conversation. Then I will have a question. I actually have a question for you that I will drop now. So Jekyll is a site generation tool and is a static site generation tool. The first time I heard of Jekyll was when I was trying to create my own personal website, like a portfolio website. And GitHub, they had a tool called GitHub Pages that allow you to build your website on GitHub Pages. So, and one of the tools that they allowed to use them was Jekyll. So my first question to the speaker now is this. During that time and currently now, I don't know if it has changed. I know that Jekyll is based on Ruby, and you have mentioned how to set up Ruby. Now, if I use a Windows system, Ruby doesn't work really well with Windows system. Is that still the case? Can Windows users, how do they work around setting up Jekyll on their system to be able to build, to be able to generate their site? Is there a solution to that?
Yes, there is. Let me send a link to that for Windows users. I have the link somewhere to be able to install Ruby. You can install Ruby on your system for Windows. Let me just look for that. Let me look for that link. So please go ahead while I'm looking for the link to install Ruby for Windows users. Hello. Sorry, I went off. I was interrupted. So while I'm looking for the link for Windows users to install Ruby, Please, let's go ahead with the questions.
Okay. So the second question I would like to ask you is, well, are there alternatives? I don't want to use Jekyll. Maybe Ruby is giving me serious issues on Windows or Mac. Are there any possible alternatives to Jekyll?
Yes.
Or what does Jekyll do?
I'll read the docs.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so there are various static site builders. We can use like you mentioned, the GitHub pages. We can use MK docs. We can use read the docs, readthedocs.io, readthedocs, and there are several other of them. Maybe you can look at the one that's easy for you to set up. But Jekyll, like I said, the selling point with Jekyll, it has pagination. You can create your web page. You can highlight your code. So what is syntax highlighting? Syntax highlighting means that if I use the three backticks to insert, for example, how we insert a code in Medium, if I use the three backticks, I will be able to use the three backticks with title. So immediately after my three backtick, I can put the language of the code. So if I want to publish a code in JavaScript and I know the code is JavaScript, I can use the three backticks and put JavaScript after the three backticks. So Jekyll immediately recognizes that code and knows that it's JavaScript, and it immediately formats it for you to syntax. It highlights the syntax. For example, it can highlight a file.js. It can show you the file in red and stuff. So this is what Jekyll does: pagination, syntax highlighting, converting your Markdown into HTML automatically. Yeah.
Thank you for answering that question. So now, in using Markdown, because Jekyll is heavily based on Markdowns, right?
Yes.
Okay, so and it means that in using this, if you are building a normal, let me not say normal, if you are building a site with HTML, right, it's extendable. You can find a way to inject JavaScript into it and stuff like that. Is there that kind of option in Markdown where can you extend it? Can you find new ways to maybe do a drop down? How do you do that? How do you make it interactive?
That's for Jekyll.
Yes, Jekyll using Markdown.
Okay, in your you mean in your site? Okay.
Yes.
So
on your site.
Your site. So the formatting you use .md. So like I said, you use .md. Then remember drop downs, similar to a drop down. Let me just. I don't know if I can show that. Okay, let me see. Okay, so let me just give an example.
While we
Can you
wait
see my
for,
screen?
okay, yes, I can see your screen.
So I'm not on my other system. That's where I would have been able to explain I would have gone through a code to explain the drop down. So you see how the site is structured with the drop down. Not really a drop down, but this. So with Markdown, we know Markdown is limited in that with Markdown you cannot do you can't do drop downs. What you can basically do is have your what do they call that in Microsoft Word? Like have your dots, like dash. Once you put, okay, let me use hackmd.io to explain what
A
I'm
list.
saying.
A list. Are you
A
talking
list,
about list?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, a list. So with Markdown, you can only do a list. that's what Markdown allows you to do. So this is a separate system, and I'm not really set up here. So with Markdown, you can't do more than a list. You don't have any option to do a checkbox. You don't have any option to do advanced stuff that HTML does. So you can make use of basic tools, basic features that Markdown has. For example, this with on my company's documentation site, as you can see, you can have a card. Like you can have a card, you can have your left navigation and direct your basically develop your content, structure your content rather, and you can do some other ones. So this was done with HTML. The header, as you can see, this was done with HTML. This left navigation was done with HTML. Then basic documentation. Let me open a documentation for you. So this is a documentation, and these are the basic things you can actually do. Like I said, the list, you can see a table of content, MVP, and blah blah blah. So this is basic things you can do with Markdown. You can't do advanced feature. You can't use advanced features like checkboxing. You can't use advanced features like drop downs in Markdown. This is just list your H1 tag, a table. You can do a table with Markdown. You can do you can put your image in a Markdown where you have the title instead of using an A tag. You can put a link in Markdown where you have your brackets, your parentheses, then your brackets and stuff. So those are some of the basic features we have with Markdown. You can't do advanced stuff with Markdown. Yeah. So
Thank you for that.
the link.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. So we'll be rounding up by 12. But before I round up, I just have one last question. So I just want to ask you, do you have experience using Markdowns in open source, like project open source tools? Like what does that process looks like in open source tools when you are using Markdown? Is there a different way? Like, is there a generic rule to working with Markdown, like in a team or in an open source environment? Do you have any experience in that kind of setting?
Okay, yes, I do. So I've attended at hackathons. I've attended Gitcoin hackathons, consensus hackathons, and basically you are told to set me. Most of the time is setting up. Most of the time, your entry into documentation is README. So you need to know how to use Markdown to format your setup, your intro to your docs properly. So that's where you really work with open source documents in the README part. And yeah, so when I took part in the hackathon, there was a particular set of instructions that was given on how to set up our documentation, set up the README, and put links, add your teammates and stuff. So everything is basically done with Markdown. So that is why we need to know this language, because it will really help you as a technical writer and in open source, because most of, like Rufai said, most of the documentation you see is in Markdown. So if you don't know how to properly format your README, your documentation, your GitHub repo, people cannot get started with your documentation. So you have to give your README a proper title, how people can get started setting up their documentation and stuff. So yeah, that's why we need to know Markdown, so that we can easily get started in open source documentation and navigate our way through it.
Okay, thank you very much for today's session. We'll be rounding up in the next 5 or so minutes. If you need to follow our speaker for today, you can find her on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check the chat session for our GitHub repo. Let me reshare it so that you can find her in the chat session and follow our work. So to summarize what we have been able to achieve today, we were able to talk about markdowns, and we went on to talk about how to use Jekyll to set up a static site. We were able to set up the environment for the static site. I have also myself cloned the static site to see how it works. So if you look at here, you can see my own terminal. I was able to also clone the site. So you can also try to clone the site on your end and set up your own environment. If you want to follow or need this slide, we will share it in our group. So don't forget to follow us in our group, or we are also on, we ourselves, Write the Docs Nigeria, we are on Twitter. So don't forget to follow us on Twitter and see the latest update we have for you. I would like to tell everybody that we will now be hosting 2 events every month. So on the first Saturday of the month, and on the last Saturday, and the 3rd Saturday of the month. So like now, this is April, and this is the first Saturday of the month. We are hosting an event. Then the next event we'll be having is in 2 weeks' time. In 2 weeks' time, that is the 3rd Saturday of the month, and we would be hosting a new set of speakers. So the way we have organized it is that the first Saturday of the month will be for local speakers in Nigeria, in Africa, that have something to share, that we want to hear about the work they are doing and how they are doing it. So the 3rd Saturday of the month, which is 2 weeks' time, we will be hosting global speakers. We'll be hosting speakers that are non-Nigerians. That's what I mean by global speakers. Non-Nigerians, non-Africans. We want to hear about how they are also building products and how they are documenting those products, right? So that is our plan for the next few months. We hope that by doing this, we can be able to cover a lot of ground and be able to provide value to the community. Please, if you have friends that are interested in technical writing, that are new to technical writing, kindly tell them about our event and about our community. You can find out on Twitter at Write the Docs. So NG Docs, that is our Twitter handle, at NG Docs. Just find us on Twitter and we will be able to share more about our events to you. We are also on WhatsApp. So if you connect with us on Instagram, on Twitter, we'll be able to share our WhatsApp link with you. Ifeoma has a question. Please go ahead, Ifeoma.
Yeah, good morning, guys. So
Good
my
morning.
question is, sorry, this place is a bit noisy. So my question is, aside writing documentations or maybe writing article as a technical writer, so I would love to know. I think my question is going direct to Omatere. So I want to know other things that technical writers do aside maybe writing article or maybe putting up documentation. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. That's a very important question. So as a technical writer, you can also work as a content developer. You can create technical content. You can also, what is in can I say in vogue, or what is rather coming up rapidly is API docs. So the job description, API documentation, it's really, you can work as an API writer, you can write APIs, you can work as a content developer, you can work as a documentation engineer. And yeah, so those are, recently I had an opportunity to recommend somebody, a technical writer, that's for a company asked me to recommend someone because they didn't have a documentation. They didn't have any documentation, and they wanted somebody that could come up with creating the APIs and setting up everything. So I looked and I couldn't, because most of the time what we see is software developers and technical writers in one job this is. So, and most of the time it's only articles we write. Most of us are not in depth into technical writing. Most of us know the editing part of technical writing. There is also, you can also edit documentation. And one important point, thank God you raised this question, is that technicals need to know how to code, or at least understand code. Because if you don't understand code, you won't be able to translate code into documentation. You won't be able to explain a line of code. So you need to also know how to read code. Very important, because Facebook, Google, they require you to know how to read code. And for you to know how to read code, you need to know how to write code, at least to an extent. So I didn't know who among my cycle who knows how to get a documentation site up from scratch. So it was really difficult finding such technical writers. So that's why I'm really appreciative of this topic, and technical writers can go in depth to know that they can do much more than writing articles. So you can edit content, you can serve as content editor, you can serve as content developer, you can serve as API writer, a documentation engineer. So those are there are different what you can do. For example, a company hires you to be a technical writer in on Facebook, for example. And if you don't know how to write, if you don't know how to read code, you might just fall under editing parts. So that's why you need to know your onions as a technical writer, because you might be employed somewhere as a technical writer, and if they find out that you don't understand code, you might not be able to explain much, or you might not be able to write articles as they want to, and you might basically fall under the editing aspect of technical writing. So in order to avoid being just an editor of documentation, you can work on yourself and work to be able to read and understand code, so that you can easily set up you can easily explain APIs and easily be able to come up with articles for your company. So that's why you need to know how to read code as a technical writer. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Rufai, you are muted.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So to add to that answer, right, Ifeoma, so one thing I believe is important is how the team is set up, right? So from my experience, me personally, I have a technical background, so I can work with APIs, I can work with some of those technologies that software engineers use. But there are some domains that you are brought in to come and document, but you may not necessarily have the technical expertise in that domain. So example, if you are brought into a team that is working on a blockchain, or that is working on cryptocurrency, or that is working on AI, will you need to go and learn about blockchain, cryptocurrency before you can start documenting their work? So that is why I feel the team and how easy it is to approach the domain expert in your team is important.
Exactly.
So
yes,
if somebody is very
sorry.
knowledgeable in your team, yeah, flow.
Sorry for cutting in. For example, for me as a technical content developer at RSK, what I do is I work with software developers. I work with product owners. So the product owners for my team, for my company structure, the product owners write this documentation, and it's been handed over to us, the technical writing team, also known as the developer experience. So we structure the documentation. We structure it into looking at, okay, this goes into user guides, this goes into tutorials, this goes into APIs and stuff. So that's mostly what you'll be doing, especially for technical writers that are in companies that are structured. So like Rufai said, you are going to work with developers. You don't need to understand the code. What I mean is, for example, last year I had to write full stack dApps built on RSK. I had to work on that, and because I knew Solidity, and next I knew, because I started with development before I fully immersed technical writing. I knew a little bit of Solidity, so for me to be able to write full stack dApps built on REST, I'm using a voting application. I needed to know how to start a node. I needed to know how to read at least a little bit of Solidity code. I needed to know some. So that's what I mean by being able to read code, because the developer can hand over the documentation to you, and you'll be able to, you are the technical writer, and you will be the one to translate the documentation. So if the development team hands over a documentation to you, and you cannot see errors in that documentation. For example, there is no double quote inside the API. How do you know, as a technical writer, you don't know how to run that code in your terminal? So that's what I mean by being able to. So you might not necessarily know blockchain, you might not necessarily know the core tools, but documentation is handed over to you. You need to know how to use it, because when you are using documentation from beginning to end, you as a technical writer will need to test that documentation before you know how to organize it and for your users and structure it for your users. So you need to do these basic things as a technical writer.
Okay, so thank you very much. We are just above our time. Thank you everyone for your presence today. We appreciate our speaker, and we are very grateful that you were able to make it with us today. For our participants who joined us today, we thank you for providing the time and making time for this session. I would like to apologize for the initial noise that we were getting in the background and the people that were disturbing us. We will try to make it better over the next session. So with that, we'll be rounding up our session for today. Hi, Joy.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I put my hands up.
Joy.
I wanted to ask a question.
Okay, flow.
Okay, thank you, Owens, for your session. It was really informative, because I've heard about Jekyll, but I've never really had to use it at any point. So my question is, you mentioned that you started from development, and then you got into technical writing, and now you're writing documentations at the company you're working. So I want to ask, like, on a personal level, like, how does one actually get started with writing documentation? Because writing documentation, sometimes I feel like maybe it's when you work on big projects, or you're actually working at a company, and you want to, like, make the information about the maybe product accessible to users. So maybe someone who is just taking up that career path as technical writing and wants to delve into documentation, what do you actually recommend the person starts with? Is it like taking courses that the person has to learn about the documentation, or like what would you recommend as the actual path or means to follow?
Okay, thank you very much. That question is very important. When people ask me how they need to get started in technical writing, I usually refer them to the Google Technical Writer course. And apart from that, I also ask if they have knowledge of software development, at least not HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because for you to be a technical writer will be valued, you need to know how to read code. So I ask them, are you coming from a development background? Because the world is changing, and we can see more software developers handling technical writing roles. So as a technical writer, how do you differentiate yourself? You need to differentiate yourself by also knowing how to write code and read code. That's how you'll be valued in a company. So I refer them to the Google Technical Writer course. If you search on Google, you see the technical writing course, which can help you to know how to structure your sentences, structure your grammar and stuff. So that helps you as a beginner first. Then I'm also concerned about people starting their career in technical writing from a development background, because it would be very easier for people coming from that background. And the way tech is, if you can all agree with me, the way tech is, if you don't have this basic understanding, For example, product managers, UI designers also need to know how to understand HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Do you agree with me? Because this will be applied in what they do. So as a technical writer that doesn't know the basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I won't know how to structure my documentation for what developers might want. Remember, as a technical writer, you are writing for developers. Developers are your users. So how can this documentation easily get them started with, for example, which API should I mention? For example, Flutterwave API. As a technical writer working on Flutterwave APIs, writing about Flutterwave APIs, how do I structure my documentation to enable developers easily get started? So that's it. So I'm concerned about Joy. I'm concerned about their background, and I always refer them to go and understand code, because it's very important if you want to. There are technical writers, mind you, there are technical writers who don't code, mind you, but to be able to progress in this 2021 and beyond, you need to know how to write, to read, at least, even though you don't know how to write, you need to know how to read code, know how to read, know how to structure your code, read the code and stuff. So that's the parts Joy I advise for people to follow. Go technical writing course, at least get running, start writing code. Also, you can get started. For example, if you visit the open source sites, you can start your learning. You can start your technical writing by explaining. Look at documentation. Try to explain what this documentation does. If you are just starting in development, start writing about how to do pagination in HTML, how to do pagination in your site. So all those things helps you to develop your technical writing skills, and to know that you are writing for people is very important. Know that you're writing for people and know your audience, because your audience are developers. So when developers visit a documentation, what are they looking for? They're looking for how they can easily start their journey. So if you're telling them to run a node, how do you structure the node to enable them get started very early? There are very good sites that are recommended for documentation, like Twilio. If you go, the onboarding experience for developers is the quick start is very minimal. You can go to Twilio, study their documentation site, see how they organize their documentation, so that when you get jobs that needs you to handle developer portals, that needs you to handle documentation, you will know how to get started, and it will be easier for you as a technical writer. Yeah, so that's it, Joy. Starting with development, start by translating your own personal sites, your personal learning. Start by documenting them, putting it on Medium. Also, there are sites that will enable you to learn how to earn money from your writing. So those little whatever you learn, put it on Medium. Whatever you learn, whatever API you come across and you are just starting in development, see how you can explain it to an audience and help them to get started. So those are the career paths that I advise for the newbies in technical writing to follow.
Yes, thank you very much for those tips. So I will just add that for Joy, I will say, look at the links. So she mentioned some links. I have posted them on our chat session. So just copy them and follow those links. You will be able to follow the Google technical writing course. Try to complete that. Another thing is, if you are going to be writing a documentation, if you want experience in a documentation, talk to the people that are going to be using that documentation. So, and then you'll be able to get an idea of what is the problem they are having, and then you will know how to approach that problem and how to solve that problem. Do you get? So does any other person have anything to say before we round up for today? Okay. In the absence of any further conversation, I would like to close this session for today. Thank you, our speaker. Thank you to the participants. Please tell others about our event. We will be hosting our next event in 2 weeks' time, upper Saturday. We hope everybody will be available. Please, if you need to contact us, we are on Twitter at ngdocs. ngdocs. You'll find us on Twitter. Thank you very much for today's session, and we are done for today. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks very much.
Bye, guys.
Yes, thank you. Bye.